Welcome, friends. This is Under the Arc Sports. I'm Eric,
And I'm David.
and today we're going to take a first look at Mizzou's bowl game, the Armed Forces Bowl against Army. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on Facebook and Instagram. So, David, kind of a late developing bowl game here. Mizzou taking on West Point. What's your initial reaction to that matchup?
It's not one I would have liked to have seen. In all honesty, I mean, let's face it. Just entertainment wise, it's not that interesting. I would have liked to have gone against a better team, someone from a Power Five conference, if anything, that we are not used to facing, or a high end team like San Diego State would have been fun to watch too. Uh, but I mean, there are some benefits to this game just based on where it is location wise because it's in Texas. The fans down there will get a chance to see. Plus, it gives us a chance to maybe have some of those Texas recruits come check us out at the bowl game.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. The Armed Forces Bowl. It's on December 22nd, and it's going to be in Fort Worth. It's actually the TCU's home stadium is where this game will be played. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup. It'll probably be a quick game, just because Army does not throw the ball that much. They'll sneak a pass in every now and again, but it's going to be a quick game just because they're going to run and the clock's going to run.
And then we run with Beatty, so
Yeah, yeah. So if they pound the ball with Beatty 40 times, combine that with Army, and this game may be over in 2.5 hours. But yeah, it's an interesting matchup. You look at the bowl practices and what you're going to use those for. A lot of times, those are used for developing younger guys, or just building for the future, or just kind of refining whatever. It's different with Army with their triple option offense. That's so different that you have to practice differently. The scheme is just unlike anything Mizzou will ever see. So I think Drink has a choice. He can coach, to develop young guys and maybe add a little bit of option stuff in here, but look more to the future. And that may be more long-term outlook for these practices, or, just straight up, all right, Army, we are triple option focused, and maybe the practices don't pay off very much in the long term, but helps you win the bowl game. So that's an odd choice that Drink will have to make, I think, in the context of winning the bowl game versus building the program and getting young guys reps and all that. One thing that's pretty unfortunate for Mizzou fans, David, is this game, December 22nd, 7 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. 1 hour later, Braggin Rights starts.
now it might be
I know
very
exactly what you're
fortunate.
going to say.
I was gonna say it might be very fortunate in all honesty. Let's face it, men's basketball has done nothing to entice fans to watch. In fact, I normally make it a yearly tradition to go to the Bragging Rights game, but the way this team has played this year really has me wanting just to go watch both games at a bar or
Yeah,
even travel down to Dallas. To be honest with you,
yeah, and I think that Mizzou's athletic department was resisting being placed in the Armed Forces Bowl, and fighting to get one of the SEC tie-in games to avoid this situation where now Mizzou is competing against itself in its two biggest sports, and Mizzou fans have to choose in terms of watching on TV or going to one and not the other. So that's really unfortunate for Mizzou fans. They had a few things going against them with this, and the biggest one I think is geography. You look at the SEC teams where they're playing. Mississippi State is playing in Memphis, Liberty Bowl. That's like 200 miles away. LSU is playing in Houston. That's pretty close by. Tennessee playing in the Music City Bowl. That's within their own state. Florida is playing in Tampa in the Gasparilla Bowl. South Carolina is playing in the Duke's Mayo Bowl in Charlotte. They're all playing right there. That really went against Missouri, as well as the fact that Missouri just doesn't sell tickets. It doesn't move the needle very much nationally in terms of it drawing a national TV audience. And Mizzou didn't sell 50,000 tickets to a single home game this season. That is something that these bowl committees are going to factor in. These games exist for the bowl committee and their businesses and whatever to make money. And if Mizzou's not going to sell tickets, which is probably the stigma, at least in comparison to a team like Florida or Auburn or whoever else, then you're left with Missouri being the odd man out and the 13th team out of the bowls. The SEC has 12 tie-ins, but 13 teams were eligible. Everybody but Vandy was bowl eligible. So that meant one team was going to be the odd man out, and it's Missouri. And that's why it was a complete wild card where Missouri was going to go once we all knew it wasn't going to be like the Liberty Bowl or Birmingham Bowl or something that the SEC has a tie-in to.
Well, and I was going to say, against the stigma, Mizzou actually does travel fairly well to bowl games. However, there was no confidence this year, and I understand it, when they drew under 50,000 for every single home game. So, I mean, it is what it is.
I think if it weren't for the bragging rights deal, I think Mizzou fans would have a rosier outlook on this. I think even more so if it weren't against a very tricky Army team. Army's 8-3. They've got the Army-Navy game coming up this coming Saturday, so that'll be a chance for Mizzou fans to see what the team will be going up against.
Yeah, and like you said, I really don't have a problem with the game, and I honestly think Drake's going to take the outlook of like working with our young guys and then advancing their talent and looking in the long run, because that's kind of what he's been doing all year, honestly. But it is frustrating to see both games at the same time, and that's probably my only complaint about this bowl. And I agree with you, Eric. I think the AD was fighting really hard not to get into this bowl, which is probably why it took so long for them to announce it.
Yeah, and it's not the Armed Forces Bowl. It's the timing of it. Right. Yeah. And the reason I think that they were resisting being placed in this bowl is that when Brett McMurphy seemed to break the news of every single bowl game, aside from the playoff, and he tweeted out Armed Forces Bowl, Army, and an unnamed SEC team. And then there was Texas Tech to the Liberty Bowl against an unnamed SEC team. To me, that tells me, knowing the circumstances, that Mizzou was lobbying hard to get into the Liberty Bowl. And Missouri, the Liberty Bowl versus Texas Tech at 6-6. Are you kidding me? That would have been a home run. And honestly,
it would have been a really fun one to watch.
I can't argue with them doing that.
Yeah, and it would have been really fun to watch that game too, because bringing back an old Big 12 opponent. But at this point, it is what it is, and we're going to a bowl game. So stay tuned. We will have our preview of that game about a week beforehand. Otherwise, thank you for watching Under the Arch Sports.